Well, thank you, Chair, for that introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start by saying what a privilege it is to have been appointed to the Chair of Architecture and Planning here at the University of Dundee, and I'd like to begin by highlighting a couple of reasons. First, this year sees town and regional planning here at Dundee celebrate 50 years of planning education, making it one of the oldest planning schools in the UK, indeed in Europe. Planning education has changed and expanded over the years since planning education became a separate discipline from engineering and from architecture over 100 years ago. This morning I will but touch on one aspect which brings a range of built environment disciplines and professions together: urban regeneration. Second, there are the connections that Patrick Geddes had with the University of Dundee. A former professor of botany here, his dictum says it all about our reliance on the natural environment. By leaves we live. Further, Geddes was an early advocate of experiential learning, or learning by doing, which I hold to be an essential ingredient of university education. But more importantly, perhaps, Geddes is internationally acknowledged as a father of town and regional planning. He coined the term conurbation. His experience growing up in the Tay Valley inspired his valley plan. This acknowledges the interplay between town and country. Geddes' integrating argument was that it takes a whole region and interlinked occupations and professions to make a city. Other Geddesian principles that inform my approach to teaching, research and public scholarship are also shaped by his advocacy of interdisciplinarity and civic education, and the mantra attributed to him of work-place folk. This triad may be understood as a prescient assertion of sustainability, essentially embracing the three pillars of economy, environment and society. His commitment to integration and interdisciplinarity find a strong resonance in today's debates around how to deal with complex or wicked problems. I'm really looking forward to working with the Geddes Institute and Cheka to think about how we can address some of the challenges facing our urban areas and city regions. Geddes' advice to educators too is pertinent in what we might assert as the age of interdisciplinarity and impact. He argued, a general and educational point of view must be brought to bear on every specialism. The teacher's outlook should include all viewpoints, hence we must cease to think merely in terms of separated departments and faculties, and must relate these in the living mind, in the social mind as well, indeed, this above all. And as we sit a stone's throw from the Geddes quadrangle, it's timely to consider what type of enthusiastic, thought-provoking and inspiring lecturer Geddes must have been. We might all relish such student feedback. It's with ever-fresh delight one listens to his bright conversational lectures, as remote as possible from the regulation, dry as dust hours note scribbling. I don't know what Geddes would have made of the extensive regeneration going on in the city of Dundee today. His approach to renewal was much more conservative surgery, working with the fabric of the place, but that he held a particular interpretation on how to address the challenges of managing change, arresting degeneration and resisting decline gives us a clue perhaps to the fact that regeneration is a contested term and practice. Post-industrial cities in particular have in recent years been a focus of different forms of regeneration and renewal. Much of this has taken place in former waterfront locations as economies and modes of transport have changed. So whether it's the refurbishment and reuse of former warehouses in Liverpool, or dockside maritime realm enhancements in Bristol, or new cultural redevelopments in Amsterdam, or a reworking and reinterpretation of links with the sea in Fremantle, Australia, there has been an international interest in different scales and forms of revival and revitalisation of waterside locations. At present, the extensive demolition taking place in Dundee is evidence of a city very much in physical upheaval. Political and citizen expectations are high. Scotland's national planning framework, for example, highlights the Dundee waterfront as being of national importance and potentially transformational. Dundee has come such a long way, but much remains to be done. In thinking about envisaging and implementing a major waterfront regeneration scheme, I'd like to draw on my experiences of working in Northern Ireland for 5 years. And I will very briefly look at Titanic Quarter and the comprehensive redevelopment of Queen's Island in Belfast, since this is a project which is relatively further advanced than here in Dundee. And I think there are some common environmental aspects. Titanic Quarter is also one of Europe's largest waterfront regeneration projects. I'll focus on some 75 acres of former industrial land on the east side of the River Lagan, on the fringe of Belfast city centre. As in Dundee, Titanic Quarter is a major part of the city's wider efforts to reconnect with its waterfront and to rebrand the city to attract tourism and inward investment. This builds on the iconic identity and imagery of Samson and Goliath, the symbols of Belfast's former international contribution to industrial innovation, and adds Titanic Belfast to the city's skyline. There are other common threads. Both Dundee and Belfast share a shipbuilding and textile history. There is scope to trade ideas, perhaps, on how to make best use of a maritime legacy whilst tying the waterfront to the bigger city and regional context. It is also interesting that politicians and policymakers in Belfast are concerned to address negative perceptions of the city, not just because of the Troubles, but because of the tragedy that befell Titanic. Indeed, one might very well ask in what ways a disaster might be reinterpreted when launching the foundations of a major regeneration project. But in Belfast, local people often remark that, well, she was all right when she left here. The repositioning and re-imaging of the Titanic as evidence of technological expertise and bold, grand-scale thinking has been a central symbol for the city of Belfast to bring people together around a project and to reimagine a comprehensive redevelopment of the former docks and shipyards. Given the aspirations and sheer scale of the regeneration involved, this is, pun intended, a titanic task. As in Dundee, the regeneration plans for Titanic Quarter are guided by a master plan. In the case of Titanic Quarter, this was taken forward and led by Eric Kuhn of Civic Arts. The plan sets out an ambitious vision involving phased development with upfront provision of the necessary infrastructure. It is based on a mixed-use scheme comprising a number of urban villages around one of Northern Ireland's major new tourism signature projects, Titanic Belfast, a collaboration between Civic Arts and Todd Architects. It also hosts a new public records office for Northern Ireland, PRONI. This is in close proximity to a new tertiary education facility in the form of Belfast Metropolitan College, emphasising the importance of lifelong learning to the city and adding an important campus dimension to the site's regeneration. There is a commitment to the retention of heritage, including the use of the slipways, what Kuhn terms hallowed ground. The master plan puts a major emphasis on the provision of a waterfront promenade and public open space to support what Kuhn envisions as the pageantry of city life. And there is considerable reliance on private investment to complete the master plan over the coming years. Phases 1 and 2 have included leisure and tourism elements, including interpretive panels to navigate this extensive site and to support Titanic Belfast, the centrepiece, hotel accommodation, and the public records office. There are some flats, some social facilities, and the replacement of the further educational college. Much is anticipated from the new Paint Hall, one of Europe's largest film studios, supporting the production of, for example, Game of Thrones. This new facility benefits from enhanced broadband connections via a new underwater cable linking Ireland to North America. And these are some of the examples of the completed elements of Titanic Quarter. But much of Queen's Island remains desolate, as plans on the drawing board. The rather more extensive 185 acres of the former shipyard lands have still to be redeveloped. The economic downturn, however, has made securing and sustaining the necessary private sector input to keep up the pace of new development on Queen's Island very difficult. Efforts continue, however, to maintain and regenerate some of the heritage on the site, such as the former drawing rooms of Harland and Wolff. If I were to sum up the work to date, I would say that the regeneration efforts have involved time, talent, thinking at a grand scale, public and private investment, specialist expertise, but critically, interprofessional and cooperative working. Of course, Dundee does not have the sectarian strife that besets Belfast, but the closure of the shipyards, you can see the proximity of the cranes of Samson and Goliath in the background, left a legacy of unemployment. And whilst Belfast murals might now be recast as a tourist attraction, the persistence of peace walls and brownfield land close to the city centre remain very evident. So in concluding, I'd like to make the following observations. The loss of life and the sinking of the Titanic, the ship of dreams, an emblem of leading naval architecture at that time, were devastating. Yet the vision, innovation and design skills in building Titanic have become keys to unlocking Belfast's future. How resilient cities are to the corrosive and degenerative change of underinvestment, outmigration or unemployment, for example, or economic shocks such as the closing of a major industry, or unexpected events such as an earthquake or the Great Fire of Chicago, ultimately depends on the spirit and energies of people, the local citizens and politicians, the policymakers and investors, and the expertise of professionals working together to regenerate and revitalise individual places. Distinctive rather than repetitive architecture, sensitivity to place, heritage and scale, integrating a mix of uses, attending to the physical, environmental, economic and social aspects of life are all necessary to revitalise, if not transform, a city's trajectory, work, place, folk. Urban regeneration requires an inspirational plan to provide a clear sense of direction and to shape action, but it also demands sustained energy, expertise and enthusiasm of individuals in different spheres and stages of life, and with complementary skills, styles of leadership and disciplinary understandings to carry the ideas through and to keep on responding to the processes of change and those unexpected events which are a feature of life. Jonathan, you've made a good start in bringing engineering, architecture and planning back together again today. As Daniel Burnham, co-author of The Plan of Chicago, which laid out the comprehensive plans for the future of that city after the Great Fire, stated, "Make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood and probably will not themselves be realised." So let us be stirred by Dundee's ambitious vision to transform the city and share ways to cross-fertilise our disciplinary understandings and integrate our practices to make it happen. Thank you for your patience.